Hi there, I hope you're all well. I'm Beth and today I'm about a month late to join in with an open collaboration all about mini books that was set up by Doll Joy Lissa. She had invited other YouTube doll channels to join in and show off some doll-sized books. I just didn't manage to squeeze in making an extra video at the time, but really enjoyed watching everyone else's videos. And I told her I'd made a tiny book into a necklace. She said she'd love to see it, so I thought I'd go ahead and make a video about how to make one just like it, even if I am late. So you can see my little book necklace, just one of many mini books I enjoy making, sometimes for dolls, or for my daughter to draw in, or for myself. I use this one as a sketchbook. You can see here it's made of 3 little sections and has a cord to wrap it and keep it closed. I'm going to use printer paper that has been tea stained for me by my daughter. Just one sheet will do. And I've got leather cord to use, but you can cut your own, use fabric or ribbon instead. I've a scrap of real leather to recycle, but again you can improvise for the cover. I'll use a little fabric or tacky glue to stick the paper to the cover. And to make it into a necklace, I inserted an eyelet to the top of the spine. But for my example, I'll just be using a little rivet. You could use a paper fastener instead. You'll also need a needle and thread. To recreate my book, I'm cutting one sheet of paper into 4 cm long strips. I like to use a guillotine for this. I got 5 strips from that, which I'll now cut down into 6 cm widths. Here's my stack of 4 by 6 cm papers. I divide them into 3 groups. Then I fold each stack in half. Next, I work out how big to cut my cover. I want it to be slightly larger all round than the paper, and have to account for the bend at the spine. I use a tape measure and estimate that 4.5 by 7 cm should do nicely. I draw that out on the leather and double check that it looks right when closed before cutting out. I cut it out with scissors and try to round off the corners as I cut. Next, I lay out 2 of my paper sections with space in the middle for the third, and draw where the spines meet the cover. I then draw in a third line for the final section. These paper sections will be sewn to the cover, so I mark dots onto the folds where I want the thread to go through. I make marks at 5mm, 15mm, 25mm and 35mm. I will use an awl to poke holes where these marks are, but first I transfer these dots to the inside of the book spine. These dots will line up with the ones on the paper sections. Now I poke a hole where each dot is. I'm making sure I can see each hole in the cover clearly from the outside as well as the inside. Next, I'll add the strap. I checked the length from my previous book. It measures 21 centimetres. I cut a strip that length and will push a hole into one end and a hole into the cover where I want to attach it. I use a teeny tiny rivet to join the two pieces together. It's only about 3 millimeters big. That's secured nicely. Alternatively, you could make 2 holes and stitch the strap into place. Before I sew in the pages, I want to shout out some people from Instagram who've been sharing their projects. First up, thank you to Bethany from BC's Doll Place, who made a really beautiful video about receiving my custom MIDI snowdrop. Her link is in my description. Winston Chachel shared some pictures of their first MIDI custom and used my Looky Loo video to help make the eyes completely posable. Her expression is so cute, she's really adorable. Thanks for sharing, Rachel. Here, little Danny B has shared her own MIDI hoodie using my pattern, which I made thanks to her request on another video. It came out so well. Thanks for sharing, Danny. The Doll Diaries by Claire shared her first customization of a Blythe doll by adding one of our neck joints, changing out the dreaded pink eye chips, and giving her a second sleepy eye cord. Claire, you did so well to tackle all those changes at once, and check out the cool virtual Blythe retreat shirt too. Finally, a share from none other than Diana the Doll Fairy herself. Diana used my Smart Doll mannequin pattern to make one for her new channel mascot, the Doll Fairy. She restyled a 1/3 scale room to be a super cozy cottagecore sewing room. I love it so much. Thanks, Diana. Okay, back to making my mini book. I'm taking a needle and thread, I'm using strong thread here, and knotting the tail end well. I grab one paper section and push the needle from the inside facing out into the second hole from the top. I line it up with the cover, with the last line marked, and push the needle through the matching second hole. Make sure the paper is up against that line, then bring the needle back in through the top hole on that same line. Through the cover and the papers too, keeping everything tight as we go. Now push the needle back out through the first hole we used, the second one down, which should have the knotted end of the thread. And then back in through the third hole down. We're leaving one thread loop per section we sew on the outside. Now we go out of the fourth hole before coming back into the third one. At this point, I knot the thread securely on the inside of the book and snip the excess thread. That's one of our 3 paper sections secured. I knot the end of the thread again and will repeat the exact same steps over again for the second section. This time my stitches are all within the middle line drawn on the cover. Again, I'm trying to hold the paper snug against the cover as I sew. There, back in through the third hole, and I knot the end of the thread around one of the previous loops. From the outside we now have 2 lines of stitching, which I think adds a really nice decorative touch. You could use coloured embroidery thread to contrast with your cover colour maybe. The last section of paper goes in the same way again, this time lined up with the first line drawn. Now you could customise this to your own size and thickness, of course, too. Add lots more sections, make it bigger and use it as a notebook or a scrapbook. Once I've tied and cut off the last thread, I make sure it's all sitting nicely. My last step will be to glue the first and last page of the book to the front and back covers. I spread the glue thin and try not to go beyond the edge of the paper. I press down the pages firmly, and with that, my tiny book is complete. I can wrap and tuck in the strap to hold it closed, and with these tea-stained pages, I think it already looks really vintage, aged, and aesthetic. I think this scale works really well for Blythe, looking like a good-sized journal for her. I give it to my custom Clearly Connie Blythe to enjoy, and she's cosy in her chair to look at it. I want to welcome my newest patron, Trisha H, and thank them all for supporting my channel over on Patreon. They've been giving me feedback on new projects and got a sneak peek of the new video intro my husband Craig made. What do you think of it? Well, I hope you enjoyed this little creative project. I hope you'll give it a try yourself and let me know what you think of it in the comments below. Please take care and I'll see you again soon. Bye!